In the beginning, right after the Big Bang, before stars, before atoms, even before light as we know it, the universe was a shimmering, radiant sea of plasma. It was the first state of matter, the original canvas on which all of creation unfolded. And perhaps that primordial plasma never left us. Perhaps that ancient radiant sea became something else in human memory, something sacred. When we look at Ezekiel's fiery wheels, the lightning-wielding Vedic gods, or the burning eye of Ra, we start to see a pattern emerge. Across cultures and centuries, people have described glowing beings, divine fire, and radiant presences descending from the heavens. We've called them gods, angels, and spirits. But what if what they experienced was plasma? And if it was, does that make it less sacred? Or could plasma, the same force that shaped the early universe, that created the very matter you're made of, be the bridge between source and you? In this video, we'll explore ancient stories from around the world, reveal how plasma behaves in strange and lifelike ways, and ask whether this glowing force might be the missing link between science and the sacred. Could plasma be the mysterious presence behind thousands of years of spiritual experience? Let's find out together. The idea that radiant forms in the sky could be divine is not new. It's ancient, woven into the spiritual DNA of nearly every culture. From sacred texts to oral traditions, glowing beings, fire that does not burn, and light that moves with intention appear again and again. In this section, we'll travel across time and belief systems, not to reduce these stories, but to notice a possible pattern. We begin with biblical traditions, where some of the most powerful spiritual encounters are bound to light. One of the most iconic is the story of Moses and the burning bush. According to Exodus 3:2, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. It goes on to say, a voice speaks from within the flame, identifying itself as God. This isn't simply a metaphor, it's an image of fire with presence, radiant and intelligent, yet not consuming. It's the kind of visual that today might be described as a plasma phenomenon, a self-contained structure of glowing energy anchored to a place. Then there's Ezekiel's vision, a passage that has stirred centuries of interpretation. He describes wheels within wheels, glowing like amber and lightning, full of movement, brilliance, and structure. To some, this is divine machinery. To others, a mystical experience. But in light of what we now understand, it also resembles a plasmoid, a glowing, spinning structure of charged particles, sometimes seen in nature, sometimes in the lab. And when paired with modern reports of orbs, luminous, moving, and often deeply meaningful, it becomes even more compelling. In the book of Exodus, God appears again, this time as a pillar of cloud by day and fire by night, leading the Israelites through the wilderness. It doesn't just shine, it moves with purpose, hovers with presence, and seems to respond, a radiant guide across a harsh and uncertain landscape. In the Vedic traditions of ancient India, we encounter gods who don't just represent the elements, they are the elements. Indra, the storm god, rides a golden chariot across the sky, wielding thunder and lightning. In Rig Veda 1.32, he smote the serpent and set the waters free, unleashing power in a divine battle that echoes the fury of storms and electrical discharges. Enki, the god of fire, is more than a symbol. He's a living presence. In Rig Veda 1.1, He is described as the priest, the god, minister of sacrifice, the Hotar, a flame that connects humans to the gods. He moves, he breathes, and he speaks, flickering like a flame that's alive. Behavior not unlike plasma that flows, pulses, and reacts. These sacred hymns also describe brilliant beings that light the sky, descend from the heavens, or bring messages through fire. The atmosphere is charged, the light is personal, and the divine is radiant. So far we've looked at just a few moments, just glimpses really, where ancient texts describe phenomena that might echo the behavior of plasma. Now we'll continue to travel across the continents and belief systems to see how other cultures describe the light that guided. But as we do so, as we move forward, pay attention to the pattern. You might just start to notice a hidden thread, and later we'll pull that thread as we explore the magical, often mysterious ways plasma moves through our world. From the Vedic plains, we travel west to ancient Egypt, where light was sacred, power was radiant, and fire was alive. The most striking image is the Eye of Ra, a fiery force sent by the sun god to punish, protect, or restore balance. In the Book of the Heavenly Cow, this power is personified as a blazing goddess whose wrath burns across the land. Her arrival is not subtle. It scorches, punishes, transforms. Ra's journey across the sky in his solar bark is no less charged. Escorted by radiant guardians, he navigates a world divided between light and darkness, stars and serpents, fire and shadow. The gods of Egypt often wear glowing discs, are crowned in rays, and stand within halos of flames. Their light is not merely a metaphor, it's a tangible force. From desert sands, we now cross to the jungles with stepped pyramids in Mesoamerica, where the heavens were charted, revered, and watched carefully. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god, is said to descend from the sky, bringing light, knowledge, and order. He appears radiant, powerful, and transformative. For the Maya, celestial bodies weren't distant. They were woven into daily life. Gods were linked to planets like Venus, and rituals were guided by the light in the sky. Glowing visitors from above weren't just divine. They were precise, expected, and recorded. The cities themselves, like Teotihuacan, were aligned with the cosmos, built to mirror the paths of stars and celestial events. Light-shaped architecture, leadership, and myth. From the stone temples of Central America, we now move to the misty fjords and mountains of Scandinavia, where the Norse gods lived in the sky and rode with storms. Thor with his hammer, Mjolnir, brought thunder and lightning, cracking open the sky in moments of divine judgment. His presence was known not in temples, but in the rumble of storms and bolts of light. And then there is the Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge, a shimmering arc that connects Earth to the realm of the gods. Its description evokes the Aurora Borealis, a living river of light that pulses across northern skies. In their lore, light is movement, path, and connection. It's the thread between worlds. From the north, we travel to the plains, mountains, and forests of indigenous North America, where the sky is not only watched, it is inhabited. Many traditions speak of thunderbirds, massive winged beings who ride with the storm. Their wings bring thunder, their eyes flash lightning, and their arrival signals deep transformation. But not all sky phenomena roars. Some whisper. In Choctaw stories, there are ghost lights, floating orbs that appear before significant changes. One elder shared, "They come before something changes. You see the light, and you know something is about to shift." In the Great Lakes region, glowing lights are seen hovering over rivers or forests and are interpreted as Manitou, spirits of ancestors or forces of nature. It said that the light danced over the water, not lightning, not fire. It stayed, watched, then left. Here, light is alive. It visits, it watches, and it leaves without a trace. Now to ancient Greece, where gods did not hide. They revealed themselves in fire and brilliance. Zeus ruled from above, hurling lightning as a divine weapon. In Hesiod's theogony, he is said to shake the earth and sky, his bolts blazing with thunder and lightning. Apollo, god of the sun and a prophecy, radiated presence. When oracles spoke in his name, they described visions of burning light and internal fires. In the Homeric hymns, his birth floods the heavens with brilliance. Even messengers like Iris the rainbow and Hermes the sky runner move between worlds as streaks of light, visible, fast, and unmistakable. And now we arrive in Mesopotamia, a place that has honestly captured my heart, where some of the oldest written stories ever recorded also describe beings who arrive in brilliance. Enlil, god of wind and sky, descends in radiance. Storms are his voice. In the Sumerian flood story, his fury arrives as a sweeping storm, divine judgment born in the clouds. Inanna, later known as Ishtar, goddess of love and war, descends with 7 radiant symbols. She is linked to Venus, the bright planet of dawn and dusk. Her presence in the sky marks transformation and power. Sumerian texts also speak of chariots of fire, radiant thrones, and gods whose arrival shook the earth and lit the skies. These weren't metaphors for stars. They were stories of divine energy arriving with force and brilliance. Across continents and millennia, people have looked to the skies and described light that felt alive, beings that glowed, descended, and spoke without words. Whether it came as fire, cloud, or storm, the divine was often radiant. And for many, these encounters weren't just visions. They were profound religious experiences, moments that reshaped belief, purpose, and identity. So what were they seeing? What were they truly experiencing? Were these visions born from the heavens or shaped by something already within us? In the next section, we'll step away from the stories that have shaped our past and explore what we know about the plasma phenomenon, how it behaves in our skies, in our labs, and perhaps even in the oldest memories humanity still carries. Bringing us now to modern times, science offers us a name for this glowing, moving force: plasma. It's often called the fourth state of matter, though that barely hints at its strange, almost otherworldly behavior. Plasma isn't solid, liquid, or gas. It's what happens when energy floods matter, stripping electrons from atoms and creating a sea of charged particles. But this sea doesn't just shimmer. It flows, dances, and responds to its surroundings, alive with motion and potential. Plasma is far from rare. It fills the universe, the burning heart of the sun, the stars that flicker in the night, the northern lights that ripple across the poles, the flash of lightning, the surge of solar flares, even the ghostly trails of sprites and blue jets that leap from thunderheads. All of it, plasma, a radiant force that has shaped our world from above and continues to dance just beyond our understanding. But plasma isn't just chaotic energy. Under the right conditions, it can self-organize, forming filaments, rings, and even plasmoids, self-contained structures that can persist, spin, and behave in surprisingly stable ways. Some have been observed hovering or pulsing, much like the orbs reported in ancient texts and in modern-day accounts. Glowing spheres that drift with intention, sometimes appearing during storms, meditations, or even moments of emotional intensity. Plasma also creates boundaries. One of plasma's more fascinating features is the formation of double layers, thin regions where positive and negative charges separate. These layers can trap energy and give plasma a kind of surface or skin, allowing it to maintain its shape. It's one reason plasma doesn't always dissipate. It can hold itself together. And it makes you wonder, are any shapes off the table? Could a radiant column resemble a figure? Could an orb stretch into a winged form? Plasma may be bound by physics, but its forms are often unexpected. In more complex environments, plasma becomes even stranger. In what's known as dusty plasma, a form that contains tiny suspended particles, researchers have observed patterns that repeat, reorganize, and even retain structure over time. It suggests a level of order that emerges from chaos, perhaps even a kind of non-human intelligence, shaped not by neurons, but by charge, motion, and form. Plasma can also generate sound, not through the air like our voices, but as oscillating electromagnetic waves. These can vibrate nearby matter or be converted under the right conditions into audible tones. Astronauts have described eerie whooshes, low hums, and occasional chirps caused by plasma interactions in space. Some have even called it the music of the cosmos. Is it just interference or the sound of creation itself? And in laboratory settings, plasma has been shown to influence or even transmute nearby matter. In high-energy experiments, it can rearrange atomic structures, trigger fusion reactions, and even produce entirely new compounds. Could this be the root of ancient stories of transformation, a forgotten science behind the idea of alchemy, not turning lead into gold perhaps, but energy into form? All of this invites a deeper question. If you were a divine intelligence, wanting to appear to guide or to inspire, wouldn't plasma be the perfect medium? It's radiant, dynamic, and capable of influencing the world around it. It holds form without substance. It glows, it moves with purpose, and responds to fields. If I were a god looking to reach humanity, plasma would be hard to ignore, maybe even impossible. And perhaps that's why for thousands of years people saw gods in the fire, spirits in the sky, and visions wrapped in light. When something luminous defies easy explanation, it invites meaning, especially before we had the ability to understand it. And even that understanding is still in its infancy. Whether in spiritual rituals, contact experiences, or spontaneous sightings, the fascination hasn't faded. People around the world continue to describe glowing orbs, radiant forms, and intelligent lights that defy logic, yet feel profoundly real. Plasma may be physical, but what it invokes in us moves beyond the boundaries of science and into something more personal. After all, if you encountered something glowing, pulsing, and hovering with silent intention, what would you make of it? Would it be a symbol, a messenger, or a mirror reflecting something far greater than ourselves? In the next section, we'll explore a different layer of this mystery, how plasma and electromagnetic fields don't just interact with matter. They may have the ability to shape reality itself. And if that's true, then maybe the divine isn't just something we believe in. Maybe it's something that moves through fields, light, and form, and we've been sensing it all along. We've explored how plasma can light up the skies, form radiant structures, and perhaps even take on the shape of gods. But what if the story doesn't end with what we see? What if plasma also reaches inward, into the very space where we feel, perceive, and experience the divine? Plasma doesn't just respond to electromagnetic fields, it creates them. And since the human body, and especially the brain, operate through electrical signals, we may not be as separate from these forces as we once believed. The brain is a field of its own. Neurons communicate through tiny voltage shifts, producing waves that ripple through every thought, emotion, and sensation. In a way, we're not just observing the world, we're tuned into it. In the 1990s, neuroscientist Michael Persinger developed what became known as the God helmet, a device that used low-frequency electromagnetic fields to stimulate the brain's temporal lobes. People wearing it often reported overwhelming sensations, a presence in the room, a flood of awe, or even contact with something divine. These weren't just ideas, they were experiences. And Persinger wasn't alone. Studies on epileptic auras, near-death experiences, and electromagnetic hypersensitivity reveal similar patterns, vivid visions, radiant beings, a sense of connection beyond the self. Again and again, the catalyst appears to be a shift in the brain's electromagnetic environment. Now consider this. Many natural plasma events, like lightning storms, solar flares, or even the stress of tectonic activity, produce subtle electromagnetic pulses. They may be invisible, but in the right moment, they might resonate with the human brain, especially during meditation, grief, vulnerability, or wonder. One witness described standing near the ocean before a storm when a glowing sphere appeared above the waves, silent, hovering, radiating warmth. She said, "I wasn't scared. I felt seen. It wasn't light like a flashlight. It was light like a presence." Stories like these aren't bound to one culture, nor are they bound to one time. From temples to forests, deserts to mountaintops, people have described moments like this across thousands of years. So if electromagnetic fields can shape perception, if a subtle shift can open the mind to connection or contact, then maybe plasma doesn't just look spiritual. Maybe it helps us feel the sacred. By now we've seen how plasma behaves, radiant, reactive, and sometimes structured in ways that seem alive. We've seen how it's described in ancient stories, how it stirs awe in modern witnesses, and how it may even interact with our consciousness through electromagnetic fields. So, what does it all mean? I want to be clear. I'm not saying every spiritual encounter is plasma or that every glowing light in history was a ball of charged particles, but I do think something fascinating is happening here. Something that bridges ancient mystery and modern science. When we look across time, cultures, and environments, a pattern emerges. Radiant beings that descend from the sky, voices that speak from fire, lights that guide, transform, or terrify, and people, ordinary people, who walked away changed. To me, this suggests two possibilities. First, plasma and electromagnetic fields may alter perception, opening the door to spiritual experiences, even if their origin is entirely natural. Or second, and maybe more intriguingly, plasma is a medium, a kind of sacred technology, a bridge between matter and message, used by something greater to reach us. And honestly, I'm open to both, because even if we one day understand every mechanism behind these phenomena, even if we can replicate them in a lab, that doesn't mean they lose their meaning. Maybe that's what Moses saw in the bush that burned but was not consumed. Maybe that's what Ezekiel saw when the sky opened. And maybe that same light still finds its way to us today. So if you've ever had an experience, one of those moments where light felt like something more, you're not alone. You're part of a very old story. And whether plasma is the explanation, the messenger, or the medium, it reminds us that the universe still has ways of reaching us, still has ways of speaking, even through light. And before you go, my favorite part is hearing from you. If you've ever seen a strange light, felt a presence you couldn't explain, or had a moment that felt touched by something more, you're not alone. Share your thoughts and stories. I truly welcome them. We're all exploring this together, and your voice might be just what someone else needs to hear. Let's keep discovering what this light might mean.